Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Day Trading Institution. Welcome back to another video. So today's video, what we're going to be talking about is psychology, trading psychology. Now, what we're going to be covering in today's video mainly is going to be recovering from losses, right? This is one of the topics that needs to be covered, and I feel I definitely need to touch up on, because when it comes down to losses, it's a part of trading. And you as a trader, you need to be okay with that. Now, we're never really going to be able to cope with losses, right? It's never going to get to a point where you're just like okay with a loss, right? You're always going to be bothered by a loss depending on the size of the loss and if it was a planned loss. There's many different types of losses within the market. You have your planned loss, and then you have a bad loss. Your planned loss typically is the loss that you take before you enter a trade, which is predetermined risk, which is a normal loss. Now, there's also bad losses and there's also good losses, right? So when it comes down to bad losses, a bad loss means that you broke one of your trading rules. It means that you took a trade where you ended up breaking one of your rules. Maybe you took a low probability setup instead of waiting for a B or an A setup, and you ended up causing yourself a loss because of it, and you cost yourself a trade, right? And a good setup or a good loss is when you took an A or a B trade, the technicals lined up at that time, and it just simply didn't play out in your favor, right? There's so many things I could touch up on losses, right? Like when you can even, the trade can go in your direction and you could still lose. How is that possible? Typically, as a newer trader, you're gonna be able to have a predetermined loss, saying, hey, I have $20,000 in my trading account. I'm gonna take a 2% risk, meaning I'm risking $400 on this trade. Price can go halfway to your stop loss and your emotions start to play in, right? You start getting more anxious, you start looking at your computer screen a little bit more, and you end up, you're like, you know what, I'm probably gonna lose anyways, let me just close the trade. And what typically ends up happening is when that does happen, there's only really two outcomes, right? Price goes up or down and hits your stop loss, or price goes in the opposite direction and you would have been in profit, right? What I mean by you can still lose and actually, you could still lose by taking a trade that went in your favor, simply means that you close the trade in a loss early and price went in your favor and hit your targets without you being in the trade. And what you can also be doing, which is very harmful to your trading account, is what I like to call paper cutting your account, where every time you start getting to a loss, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna cut it and I'm gonna look for a re-entry. And you know, every time you do that, you're slowly paper cutting yourself, where you're like, hey, I literally just lost 5 or 6 entries of $100 and I cost myself $600, and really it's only gonna be in one or two ways, right? Price ends up hitting your stop loss and you cause yourself a bigger loss, or price hits your take profit and you have a break-even day, but you paper cut your account. Instead of you being able to mentally compose your emotions, what you did was try and look for a way to cut your losses early, but in turn you were actually giving your trading account more losses, and it's just a bad habit to have overall. Again, when you're trading, what you want to do is determine a stop loss and determine a take profit area before you enter a trade. Determine how much you're going to risk on that specific trade and be genuinely okay with, like, hey, I'm gonna lose $400 on this trade because that's only 2% of my account, right? You have to be okay with that, because if you're not, what psychologically and subconsciously will happen is, you know what, I'm just gonna enter whatever lot size and let's just hope for the best. That is so destructive to your trading account. Again, you have to be able to predetermine how much you're gonna lose before you take the trade, and you have to be genuinely okay with that. If you're not okay with that, simply lower the lot size, and you have to be okay with losing a certain number. Later on, you're gonna be able to learn how to be a more composed trader, where you can actually start risking more and more capital. But when it comes down to recovering from a loss, you have to do things that bring up your confidence. Do things that you're good at. If you're good at playing soccer, go out with the boys, go play soccer, right? Do whatever you have to do to bring up your confidence and get away from the market. Again, I can get into things like good losses, bad losses, but I feel like that's a topic for another video. You have good trades, bad trades, right? I feel like in the next video we'll cover that. As of right now, I kind of just want to go over the actual moment of when you take that loss. Sometimes, again, when it comes down to taking a loss, it depends if it's a big loss or if it's a planned loss. A planned loss, let's cover a planned loss first. So a planned loss is normal. It's going to happen within the market, right? You have to be understanding that that loss was planned and you're not going to win every single trade. Again, what you could do is just reflect on the trade, journal the trade, and maybe look for areas where you could potentially improve, right? And if you're somebody who's paper cutting your account, you have to quit that habit as soon as you possibly could. Because people who paper cut their accounts and overtrade at the same time, that is the most destructive form of a bad habit in trading. And don't worry about it. If you're somebody who's doing that, don't worry about it. We're here as a community to help you get rid of that bad habit. I was that trader once. That's why I'm telling you guys about this. It is the most destructive way and easiest way to blow a trading account is over trading, over leveraging, and paper cutting your account. Those are the three things that will help you blow your trading account like this, right? You have to stop that habit. If you need to talk to somebody about it, then reach out to me, reach out to anybody in the community. We're here to help support and help you grow as a trader. And again, when it comes to recovering from a loss, things that I like to do are things that bring up my confidence. I typically go out, maybe go to the gym, go hang out with my friends. I do whatever I have to do to kind of distract myself from it. Go walk the dogs, go chill outside for a little bit, take a break, and then come back to the markets and do my post-market analysis. But again, sometimes a loss is just gonna happen and you have to be okay with that. If you can't genuinely be okay with just understanding that, hey, this loss was planned and the trade just simply didn't go in my favor. I was just wrong on the overall direction, and I know that this is a probability game. I won't win every single trade. You have to build that into your mindset, and you're only going to get better with recovering at losses over a long period of time and as you gain more experience as a trader. You're not going to get that habit of, hey, I'm going to be okay with taking a loss right off the bat. You're probably going to be super emotional, you're going to be down, you're probably going to be scared of continuing to take losses, right? Typically, you're not going to be scared of continuing to take losses after 2 or 3 trades. But what happens after 2 or 3 trades is that your confidence is going to go down, and that's going to affect your trading performance, and it could snowball. So again, you want to do things that are psychological, that bring up your confidence. You need to bring up your confidence, and you need to be able to hype yourself up in terms of, you have to literally tell yourself every single day, I am a professional trader. I know what I'm doing, and you literally have to almost speak it into existence, right? Write it down somewhere, right? In the trading plan section of the course, we went over that, positive affirmations and everything else. So again, a loss is part of the game. Now, when it comes to a big loss, right? Taking a big loss is always going to be something super hard to deal with, because really the only person you have to blame is yourself. Now, I have to tell you everything with as much honesty as possible, because you can only blame yourself. You can't blame anybody else for that big loss, because you're the person who's making the decisions in terms of how much you're risking. What you have to do, again, is when it comes to a big loss, I would take things a little bit differently. I would maybe take a little bit of a break from the market for about a day or two, and then come back into the market. And just, again, you have to be as disciplined as possible to really follow a risk management system, right? Now, I've done many things like flip accounts where I've taken, huge losses throughout that period. And the best thing to do is right after a huge loss, step away. If you know that, hey, I'm in a 5% risk, price is about to hit my stop loss, don't move your stop loss up to give price more room to breathe. If anything, wait for more confirmation to get back into the trade, but don't make that loss bigger than what it already is, right? If you have a $10,000 account and you're down $2,000, cut the loss. That is too big of a loss, right? It'll be so much harder for you to recover from a bigger loss than it will a smaller loss, obviously, because the loss is so much bigger, right? When it comes down to being a trader, what a trader really means is that we're good at managing risk. We're good at determining probabilities. And we really have to be able to stick to that as best as we possibly could and really build that into our mindset. A trader isn't somebody who comes in the markets and just reads a price action chart. A trader is somebody who is able to make emotional decisions. A trader is somebody who is able to make decisions as logically as possible and make predetermined risks, right? It's very simple, but we have to be able to build that into our mindset, and that's only going to come with time. Now, when it comes from recovering from a loss, really it has to do with confidence, right? You have to do anything you possibly could to bring up your confidence, right? So one thing that I like to do, again, is I like to read up on trading psychology after a loss. I like to try and go back into the market and back test. You know, there's so many things that you could do. Again, read a book on trading psychology, back test, right? You could also talk to somebody about your loss, talk to another trader about a loss, right? These are just little ideas, but again, everybody's going to be different. We're not all the same individuals, right? So you have to do what makes you better in the sense of managing your emotions, because really at the end of the day, it's managing your emotions. Take a break from trading for a little bit, come back from it. If you took a big loss, if it's a normal loss, just get your mind off of it for the rest of the day. You know, you don't have to really talk about trading all too much, but you could consult with another trader and be like, hey bro, you know, I just took this loss and you know, I feel this way and that way, and just literally talking to somebody about it is going to make you feel better, right? Having these peering sessions, and again, you guys can contact me for it. That's why I developed this program. That's why I wanted to make it a smaller group than what the previous group was, so you guys can contact me and we could talk about it, right? It'll also help me as well to be able to connect with you guys and, you know, talk to you guys about my losses and stuff, right? We're all here to help each other grow, and at the end of the day, I want you guys to be all as successful as possible. So I'll talk to everybody in the next video.